Okay, welcome back to Cannabis Canada with Jason Willcox. We're now here in Saskatoon as we continue the Planting the Seeds of Liberty tour going across the country. We're here at Skunk Funk, which is one of the main locations. If you're ever in Saskatoon, come check out Skunk Funk. My bro Jeff Lundstrom, he's been with me for a long time. Also a former National Steering Committee rep of the coalition. So he served over a year with the Cannabis Rights Coalition of Canada as a national rep. So we're here now to do an interview with Jeff, see what he gathered from the coalition, what his experience was with it, and kind of get that from the documentary, but as well as to profile the store and some of the work that you can find as we continue to do this tour across Canada. So stay tuned for more, and we'll continue to bring the profiles. We'll see you in the next segue.
Every time I do an interview on TV, I'm a big fat dab.
Welcome back to Cannabis Canada with Jason Willcox. We are kicking it here in Saskatoon with none other than Mr. Big Jeff Lundstrom. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming out to the shop and hanging out.
We're dabbing it out. A lot of people don't realize as we do this tour, the Planting the Seeds of Liberty tour, it's all about defining Allard. A lot of people run around, they talk about freedom, they talk about liberty, but they don't understand that at the core, fundamental principle of freedom and liberty is your right to autonomy, to put into your body that which you wish, as long as you're not hurting anybody else or yourself in the process. So over the past 4 years, many activists, Jeff being one of them, myself, many others, took part in the coalition, which raised $300,000 and took down the federal government's MMPR, leading up to this national tour. This national tour is now taking us across as a campaign, really awareness campaign, but the pinnacle is where we're headed next, which is going to be the Kind Cup and Trade Show, where all the funds Thaddeus is given directly to the coalition's trust account with John W. Conroy QC, the account that I opened back in 2012 to take on the federal government of Canada. Now, Jeff, now that I'm done ranting on that long opening, my friend, I'm just going to hand you the mic. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about Skunk Funk. Tell us a bit about, you were one of the founding members. You were one of the first people I called up because I said, bro, I need representation. I need a strong activist. So maybe tell us a bit about the past, the present, and maybe where you see the future going here with Canada in cannabis.
Well, geez, that's a lot of questions all at once. We were lucky, granted. It's tough to feel like democracy still exists, watching things get passed, especially when Harper was reigning with the Conservative government. So it was tough for us to see the future of what even legalization would look like. I think maybe even tougher now that the Liberals are in and that whole platform. So we know the fight is going to continue regardless. Activists know, you saw a little taste of that in Toronto just, a few weeks back when they raided all the dispensaries. So, as the big companies push forward in their agenda, we have to sit back as patients and wonder where the future lies for all of that. So I think the fundamentals of what the Allard case was built on, it still exists, is going to continue to exist after August and we get the regulatory change regime from the federal government and back to court. And I don't see the end of any of it. Like the new legalization platform for recreational use is the new prohibition, if I've ever seen it. So they're going to use all of that money to extort the people that worked years making the platform exist to what it is now. Do I agree with changes to some of it? For sure. But should we all be allowed to continue to grow, which is what our case fundamentally was upheld for. So I refuse at $18 a gram to ever pay any LP to grow that when I can produce that same amount of medicine in my home for a fraction of that price, right? So 40 cents a gram is what I can grow it for, somewhere around that neighborhood. So that's about $400 a month in compared to about $13,000 a month in LP expenses, which is originally why I boycotted the new program in the first place. So both me and my doctor agreed that it wasn't going to do me any favors and I couldn't maintain a 30 gram a day license under that. So I think that has to sum up almost everything that had to do with everybody's case that went head forward with the Allard. So, I'm glad that we did win. I celebrated here. I was so happy that we just kept on growing, and that's all I want, to be able to grow quality cannabis in my own home without being infringed upon. So, and not forcing me back to the black market. So there's no need. Like $10 a gram is what you can still get it for on the street, and until they change any of that. But then we're looking at scary, them taking it all away. Like I said, they go with their new plan. We're going to lose everything, and then they're going to force people back underground. It'll be just twice as bad as it was less than 2 years ago. But we've been arguing this since 2004, since the birth, like 2 years after the birth of the program, when Prairie Plant Systems and Brett and his little greedy company got to control all that, right? Getting all that tax money to fund their facilities and to grow the worst cannabis ever for patients. So there's even more people now being funneled into that same program. So if you're a cannabis user for medicinal, you should stay away from CanniMed and Prairie Plant Systems. But I mean, how do you know some of those companies don't have available option for tinctures, for edibles, for the oils, for, I don't know, we could be producing hemp, making CBD oils. Like I said, I think we're just going to continue to fight. My efforts to join the coalition were to be part of that and just be. I've donated money. I've donated my time. I will continue to donate my time and my money as long as we continue to grow our marijuana at home. So.
So I'm just going to keep it going for yourself. We're doing some clear dabs. We got some terps here from the Cannabis Crusaders. This is MMJ, THC, Maple Ridge. You guys, they donate. We brought up Project Claudia, which destroyed Toronto. It's a horrible mess down there. Patients are displaced and they need access. LPs cannot supply what R.V. Smith sets out, cannabis in all of its forms. Those people who can supply that, I feel, are doing a community necessity and therefore should not be criminalized. I don't believe would be marginalized by the Crown. I believe that what would happen is anybody providing for patients in the present day may not face any sort of real jail time. Most importantly, though, barring the distribution part, I mean, this is where they started. They started with Bill C-10, which is now unconstitutional, but that would be mandatory minimums if you decided to grow. Then they moved on to saying, okay, we're going to control supply and distribution with fire, mold, and organized crime. That was the autonomy issue. Make the growers a threat to the community. Now, they failed so horribly to substantiate any fire or organized crime statistics, not even a single conviction of a medical marijuana grower in relation to their garden, and not a single fire attributed to a medical marijuana grow. So with these two colossal failures, we won in Allard uncontested. Now, my friends, to understand that Allard was never about the patients, please understand, it was never about the patients. You think these $20 million companies that set up were about the patients? They were never about the patients. They're here for legalizations to control supply and distribution routes. And if they had gotten away, if we didn't put an injunction on them and put in a trial up, then right now we'd be legalized. They'd be saying, remember all those fire, mold, and organized crime situations we had with the medical gardens? We can't allow that in Canada. So I'm proud to say, honestly, at its core, we've won, but we threw the football back to the legislative arm. The judicial arm is done. There's no more. The Justice Phelan says no more. There's no more from the courts. Only that $100 million lawsuit that I filed for breaching our privacy. Now what's going to happen? Yeah, definitely. You're going to get a paycheck as well. Believe me, we'll be beating our drums. It'll be in every major newspaper.
Where do we stand with the address change stuff?
Well, again, the address change was denied. Justice Phelan denied it, but that was because the Crown. Now, this is the thing: if the Crown had sought an extension and said we need more time to legislate Allard, then we would have said, okay, well, we need definitely to change these addresses. The judge said, well, will you be ready, Canada? Because Canada's the defendant. Remember, we never got charged. We charged Canada. But anyway, they say, Canada, will you be ready by August to be able to have this program?
Yes.
And they said, yes, we will be ready.
That's supposed to adopt address change at that time.
Exactly. That's supposed to adopt address change. It's supposed to adopt a whole new program. Now, this lends to what we were just talking, what you touched on there was what's going to rise. Now, those of us who've been in these wars since Parker understand exactly what happens here. It goes back and forth, back and forth. Just because we won in Allard, we protected the constitutional right to grow the cannabis plant in the country of Canada. But what are the reasonable limits on that right has yet to be determined. The judge didn't even touch on it. Therefore, I believe the federal government of Canada, and I keep saying this show after show, is going to come out and arbitrarily restrict with plant caps, maybe 6 to 12 plants per patient, and it's going to be on us to show why it's wrong, arbitrary, overbroad, and potentially unconstitutional with respect to Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. All that said, I'm not an attorney. That's why we have attorneys. I'm just a fundraiser that likes to talk a lot. So with that said, what's your thoughts on plant caps?
Yeah, no, we figured all that was going to come, right? And we'd be arguing the fundamentals of that later. So I don't know. Like, they want to try and follow maybe the same kind of platform as Colorado. We don't know, because some liberal insiders have said that they might cap out at 25. But I don't know. We should be, what formula did they go with the MMAR program, right? It's some kind of weird formula that their guys came up with that gave us this plant count based on our gram per day amount. So, I mean, I'm not willing to give up my 150 plants. So I require it.
I should say on that note, no, this is the thing. Now, a lot of people have asked me, well, what happens if they do? And now my friends note that if they say, okay, you can only have 6 to 12 plants, first they have to propose it. When they propose it, like in 2013, February 2013, John Conroy, at my directive, sent Health Canada a letter and said, should you go through with the marijuana for medical purposes regulations, we will seek a federal injunction, which is a restraining order, and we will put you on trial because we feel what you're doing is not constitutionally sound. Similarly, when they come out with the proposed regulations arising from Allard, should that even fart sideways in respect to the Constitution, we'll send a similar letter letting them know that we're prepared once again to try and protect your garden and my garden and various other over 35,000 gardens in Canada that are legally registered, many of which spent copious amounts of money and time and effort into genetic research and into their gardens. And at the very least, Canada need grandfather those 36,000 gardens and protect at least those gardens, you know, if they're going to usher in some arbitrarily restrictive program. And in the meantime, we will seek that injunction continue, you know, to stand. It would need to in essence, be a new injunction, but it would be a new injunction on that particular issue, whether the plant counts would be reasonable and whether removing for someone like myself, for instance, I can grow 122 plants. I'm 22 years with HIV. I have 101 reasons that I use cannabis, and I have a high titration and cannabinoid level. And most doctors can't even talk to you about titration of cannabinoids because there is no titration of cannabinoids that they have on paper. There's no medical value to marijuana in the country of Canada. Hypocrisy in a democracy, my friends. That's what's really going on here. So, yeah.
That implicated the program openly admit that marijuana is not a medicine and you shouldn't use it for that. Yeah. Same with the Cancer Society. That's another favorite of mine. So the Cancer Society of Canada won't even recognize cannabis as a preventative or any kind of type of medicine for cancer treatment. Never mind a cure for it, right? And they don't want to hear it. And those are the very people who are about the cure, raise money for the cure. They don't want to hear about the cure. That's insane. Like, it's insane.
Absolutely. On the way over here on the ferries, we went into the BC ferries, and because MC Farmer, we're so tired in British Columbia of our patients being messed with when there's a designated smoking area where you can sit there and smoke carcinogens, things that cause cancer, that can kill you. If you're allowed to sit there and kill yourself on the upstairs nice view of the deck, and you're not allowed to sit there and have your medicine, I believe that, again, there's a hypocrisy in a democracy. First off, because those laws were written, they're bylaws for smoking. They were never written for cannabis. They were never inferred to be referencing cannabis, or they would be challenged. Because there's simply no laws that suggest, or there's no, peer-reviewed journals or any science that would suggest a secondhand smoke in any way would impair or harm the other people in the room. Well, just in closing, Jeff, what's your take on that? I mean, we could probably talk politics all day. That's what I love about sitting down with you, bro. I mean, Jeff and I go back a lot of years. We've done a lot of events, but we could probably talk hours on this. But yeah, just kind of what's your take on just kind of where things are going now, and and what's your plans here for Won the Cup and the future.
Well, first a shout out to Thaddeus and the Kind Cup this weekend. I hope you guys have a great time. I'm sorry I can't be there. I will be there next year, I promise. I'd love to go to every event, but can't get to them all. Yes, we're headed out to the Great Canadian Glass Gathering. They're up in Birken, so Redbeard's event. Shout out to Patrick, and the Glass Gathering, it's my 7th year up there, plus Canada Day or Cannabis Day for us activists in Vancouver. It's also, again, 7 years, so last year was unreal what happened, so we'll see what happens this year. We were going to march, me and Jeremiah spoke, maybe march on City Hall, but I think we're going to try and still just rock out the art gallery. So if they don't let us set up on the one side, they do the fencing and block us all out, maybe we'll try and set up on the other side like we did last year, but hopefully more peaceful and nobody gets hurt. So that's my hope anyways. And then, yeah, the future, my cup coming up in September, of course, this year, the 6th annual Prairie Medicinal Harvest Cup. So, and that's presented by Crop King Seeds this year. So we're very proud to have them as a name sponsor, and a shout out to all the hard work that Crop King and their crew does over there. We appreciate the genetics and the hard work. You know, a lot of
all the events
everywhere,
no matter what,
across Canada, across the world.
Yeah, the crew there at Crop King, I won't get into names, but you guys are awesome. You support so many different causes. Oh, wow. Yeah, you support so many. I'm used to wearing the wireless mic. That's how tired I am. It's been a long journey. It's only been 4 days into this journey, and wow. But, yeah, and a huge thank you once again. I probably already said this, but the Thaddeus, the Con Cup and Trade Show, all funds are being given to Mr. Conroy, and that's only going to top up the Coalition's trust account with Mr. Conroy. It's going to assure that we have a good base moving forward, so that no matter what arises from Allard, if it's unconstitutional, we're here to fight for you. See you in the next segue as the tour continues. Cheers.